At the time of writing this, it's been a year and 5 months since I would release a video where me and my friend would play Team Fortress 2 in its terrible Spanish dub. In that video, I explained that I am a Salvadorian gamer who grew up seeing terrible Spanish dubs of shows such as SpongeBob and Dragon Ball, but not a whole lot of games in Spanish. Ever since I uploaded that video, I have given myself a chance to play more games and to revisit some of my favorites growing up, such as the DMC series, Half-Life, Stalker, and the new ones being Titanfall and Sekiro. However, after the Team Fortress 2 Spanish dub incident, and with enough influence of my friend who has played a mystery game which I will cover later, I have decided to check out the Spanish dubs of my 7 favorite games, going over the most iconic bits of those games and to see if they fulfill what made those lines so great. For this part of the video, I'll be covering the intro parts of Half-Life 1 and 2. For the most part in Half-Life, you're mostly isolated. There aren't many voice acted bits in Half-Life 1 and 2, but when there is voice acting, they are so iconic within their roles, such as the G-Man, whose mannerisms and ominous sounding voice makes for a very alien but iconic character.
The right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world.
Or how about the Combine units, which, yes, I know, they have a vocoder on, but they still sound like monotonous beings really just made for killing.
Contact, suspect target 1, range 6-5, weapons not safe, perfect contact, is gone, range 12, bearing 10, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, flash.
The way they sound makes them rather intimidating in retrospect. However, the Spanish dub kind of undoes all of that. Dios mío!
Vamos, gordo. ¿Intentas meterme en un lío? Ahora, por favor, por favor, no, perdón, tendrá hola.
Hola.
No me moleste.
You said hi to me, bitch! I can hardly hear it! What is his voice? What the fuck? They didn't even fucking bother to wait.
Manos a la obra, señor Freeman. Manos a la obra.
What the fuck?
Digamos que otra vez ha llegado su hora.
Not the lisp.
El hombre adecuado en el sitio equivocado puede cambiar el rumbo del mundo.
Why did he gasp between his lines?
Señor Freeman, despierte y mire a su alrededor.
Tenía que disimular por las cámaras.
It's a shame. They could have just made him a Mexican guy and it would have made sense.
¿Qué hacemos?
¿Qué hacemos?
Pensando.
Lamar, sal de allí.
Va todo bien.
Lamar. Not Lamar. Fucking Kleiner's voice actor definitely fits.
¿Qué? Ahí estás. Gordo, tío.
Hold on, did this bitch just call me Tío?
Благодарим тебя за то, что раскрыл слугам твоим козни врагов наших. Одари сиянием твоим души тех, кто отдаст жизнь во исполнение воли твоей. Да будет благословенно вечное их единение.
Stalker might end up being the shortest part of this entire video, mostly because I don't really have a way to commentate on Russian voice acting since I haven't really seen any good examples of good Russian voice acting. However, what I will talk about is, of course, the use of Spain Spanish. This isn't shocking. However, the real shocking part is...
Guarda el arma, tío.
Did he just call me tío? Yeah, no, that's 2 for Theo and 0 for Wei and Mahe. Timefall 2, one of my most beloved games that I have ever touched. I have spent a lot of time in the multiplayer and even beat the campaign on master difficulty. However, what resonated with me a lot when playing through the campaign was surely the voice acting of Jack Cooper, voiced by Matt Mercer, and BT7274, voiced by Glenn Steinbrum. In order to not rehash what has already been said about the game's voice acting, I suggest watching How Titanfall 2's Voice Acting Makes You Care by Luke Correa. Luke Correa. He talks about a lot of how the English dub does a really great job of capturing a far more inexperienced Jack Cooper and the ever so stoic BT, and how they start building trust with each other. Hell, there are some lines that are so well delivered that they are repeatedly quoted to this day by the fan base. However, does the Spanish dub capture this at all?
Viento, 3 nudos a 274 grados, alcance 95 metros, peso del proyectil, 89 kilogramos. Confía en mí.
Confía en mí! Oh my god! Confía en mí. Yes. The shocking part about this is how they managed to cast people who sound like Jack Cooper and BT, but just speaking in Spanish.
Me alegro de que hayas vuelto en una pieza. Más de 25,000 en realidad. BT-7274 activado y listo para el combate.
Glad to have you back in one piece, BT.
Over 25,000 actually. BT-7274 online and ready for combat.
Something that I would notice a lot in a whole lot of other games, especially with Spanish dubs, is that they do not cast the characters to actually fit within their roles at all. It doesn't really matter about their accents, right? It's a matter of, do their voices actually fit with the character? Does BT sound like a stoic titan?
El concepto de amor de los humanos requiere de admiración, atracción, devoción y respeto. Conclusión. Estoy enamorado un 50%.
Does Jack Cooper sound like an inexperienced and young rifleman going to the thick of it?
Vete, ¿qué sucede con esos muros?
Do the Apex Predators voices sound like they fit? Well, I can only answer for half of the Apex Predators, unfortunately. But there are some castings that I can take more seriously than the original voices, such as Richter, because, well, he isn't doing the Arnold Schwarzenegger impression the entire time.
No quieres una pelea de verdad. Vamos cara a cara. No quieres correr. Neta que eres.
Blisk, weirdly enough, sounds fitting.
Mira, héroe. Tienes algo que me pertenece y quiero recuperarlo. Ve. Y dile a tu titán que se abra.
Lone does a pretty good job.
Lo siento, hermano. Hora de morir. Esto lo haré gratis.
But Viper is the worst casting I think I've heard, and he is 6 out of 10, which says a lot.
1. Viper está en la estación. Tu viaje termina aquí, piloto. Los cielos son míos. No tienes dónde huir, ni dónde esconderte.
Overall, I'd give Titanfall 2's Spanish dub a 9 out of 10. They absolutely nailed it, and some of the casting choices were mildly questionable, but I think I can give it a pass knowing that they were, regardless, actually trying to act. The same I cannot say for Sekiro.
¡Aire! ¡Sekiro!
Now, I didn't play through the entire game in Spanish. However, I was going to fight the bosses in their Spanish voices. The voices did not do any of them any justice. This was already an issue with the English voices where their voices just sounded very out of place, especially Ishin.
Come, Sekiro! Oh, my blood boils! Face me, Sekiro!
He doesn't sound as gruff and definitely doesn't sound as excited to fight you compared to the Japanese dub.
参れ、Sekiro! 血がたぎってきた！行くぞ、Sekiro!
In comparison to the Japanese dub, where he sounds like a total badass, real protag shit, especially when he tells you hesitation is defeat. He sounds more disappointed in comparison to when he says hesitation is defeat in English.
Hesitation is defeat.
How does the Spanish dub handle this?
Beneath, Sekiro.
Well, Ishin sounds like a really constipated guy. Yeah, they did Ishin dirty in this dub. Owl is alright.
Muy bien.
I guess he sounds like an average Spanish dad. But the last person I would go over would be Emma, since she is like one of 2 female reflection bosses, so here goes nothing.
Oh, Maese Lobo. Me alegro de veros.
¿Esta calabaza la habéis hecho vos?
Sí. En principio era para Lord Kuro, pero parece que confía en vos.
You know, it's surprising. She does sound like Emma a little bit, but I can't take her seriously because of the list. Now lastly, we got Kuro. They did him dirty. They did my boy dirty.
Lobo, debes traer las lágrimas del dragón del reino divino.
What the fuck? 3 out of 10. Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. There isn't a lot of talking in these games, but again, when there is talking, they do in fact sell their role. But I guess with the case of Doom Eternal, Dr. Hayden is just reduced to just being exposition, which is kind of eh.
The power source of the BFG 10,000 should be of interest to you as well. The icon of sin is no longer in the Khan Maker's control. The longer that is a weapon, the strong, not a teleporter. There is a
In Doom 2016, he was more of a wildcard ally that the Doomslayer reluctantly joins, and then later he betrays us. But as soon as Doom Eternal rolls up, he's perfectly fine with citing a few, and then does a quick 180 when he does become the Seraphim. But apart from that, though, you do have instances of good voice acting, such as the Dark Lord reading the Slayer's Testament.
In the first age, in the first fapping, when the shafts first lengthened, one stood.
Edward Bosco's performance of the Marauder. Yes, Alistair from Hazbin Hotel is freaking voicing the Marauder. And even the Doomslayer's singular line of just no. All of them have really great voice acting, but the Spanish dub doesn't do them any justice, except for maybe Samuel Hayden in Eternal and the Marauder, but I can't tell if it's just the filters doing the heavy lifting.
Estoy abriendo el portal.
Nunca fuiste uno de nosotros. Eras más que un usurpador. Mis ojos han sido abiertos.
I got bass boosted. Oh no. I can't. What the fuck? Are you speaking English?
Has ganado.
Se acabó.
En la primera era, en la primera batalla, la primera... Alguien resistió.
They didn't even bother putting the filter on too.
Su
There's no reverb, there's no nothing for this shit, man. He's just reading it in a fucking very, very low voice. He didn't bother doing en el primer. I don't even know how they say it. Hold on. En el primer año. En el no sé. En el primer año.
Responde. No tienes nada que decirle a tu creador antes de destruirlo. No.
No.
Contra todo el mal que el infierno pueda conjurar. Contra toda la perversión que la humanidad puede producir.
He sounds like fucking Gandalf.
Overall, I'd rate Doom Eternal's Latin American dub 7 out of 10 and Doom 2016 dub a 3 out of 10. Halo Reach. One of my games of all time, and one of the games that made me feel sad thinking about it, but that's besides the point. Halo Reach is filled to the brim with a lot of memorable lines that give me serotonin, or absolute sadness, or even dread. These lines don't really need any introduction. With Halo still being a heavily story-based game with a lot of dialogue, you really want to make sure the voice acting also fits with how grim the entire situation is, but also to fit with the characters as well. The Spartan 2s, for example, were basically child soldiers. They basically shat out war wherever they went off to. But considering how George was born on Reach, he's a lot more empathetic, sounding more human, unlike the Master Chief. Since most of Noble Team is Spartan 3s, they also are able to convey more emotion, except for fear, as it appears as though they are modified to never really feel fear, in comparison to the Marines, who absolutely do convey fear and desperation. For the most part, Reach's voice acting is really good. But what about the Spanish dub? Well, here's the kicker. Much like Titanfall 2's and Doom Eternal Spanish dub, you can select between Mexican Spanish and Spain Spanish. Now, I know for most of the video I've been shitting on Spain Spanish, but I've never really explained why. And I guess now is the time I should really explain why dialects and localization is important. I guess the first thing I would really have to explain is why I react to the way that I do to Theo. And a lot of the basics for Spanish in Spain is seen as pretty ridiculous in Latin America, from the lisp to the slang to even the Inquisition. Okay, I should probably get back to Reach. I ended up bringing my local white guy in the Mexican family, and we would set off on playing Halo Reach's campaign in Spanish. Though mid-session my PC would get bricked, so we lost the first hour of footage. I still blame you, John. However, I was still able to keep a lot of what we had done for Halo Reach. Oddly enough, Halo Reach's Spanish dub is really good. Something that I want to point out that we'd noticed is they actually bothered to lip sync most of the cutscenes where it would be necessary.
Solo unos añadidos.
Ya veo. El repetidor de Visegrad. Uno de mis xenoarqueólogos, el profesor Laszlo Sorvad, trabajaba en su centro de datos. Quizás sepa algo sobre su muerte.
And that left a pretty good impression on me. And yet again, some of the voices do sound like the original voices, especially Cat of all people.
Podría ser, no sé, el punto de lanzamiento inexistente más cercano del inexistente programa Saber, descartado por 3 administraciones como un rumor absurdo.
But obviously not all the characters can sound like the originals. For example, Emil. Emil was voiced by Jamie Hector, who has an accent that of course would not be found in Mexico. Although it would be interesting hearing Spanish be spoken by people speaking African American vernacular English, but I understand if they can't just simply cast somebody who is outside of the country. This segues nicely into when George says his few lines in his native language of Hungarian in the original dub and in the Mexican dub.
Annebem Jorge.
Shara.
Shara. Sebhatar Sotnev. Tu acento me suena. Sopron?
Tengeri.
The Mexican VA was speaking in Hungarian, and even though they could have just subbed in the original dub, it is actually nice that they wanted to have consistency in this dub. Lastly, let's go over some of the more iconic bits of Halo Reach's dub. I'll go over a few of the more quotable parts of Reach, which is a lot, but there are a few that resonate with me pretty well.
Tendrá que ser así. Tengo noticias buenas y malas. Este pájaro recibió varios impactos y el giroscopio del impulsor está frito. La única forma de salir de aquí es la gravedad.
¿Y las buenas?
Esas eran las buenas.
A la velocidad actual.
Damn,
53 segundos para el destino.
Ya.
He almost sounded like that he was gonna laugh.
Las malas, el temporizador está frito. Tendré que activarlo a mano.
Es un viaje sin retorno.
Nos toca a todos tarde o temprano. En marcha 6, te van a necesitar allá abajo. Escucha, Reach ha sido bueno conmigo. Es hora de devolver el favor. Permíteme hacerlo. Diles que lo aprovechen.
Diles que lo aprovechen. Well, that's the new way to say it.
Son solo unos añadidos.
Ya veo.
No way, they actually like got like the lip syncing too?
Uno trabaja
Look at
en
it.
su centro de datos.
Yeah.
Quizás sepa
They actually
algo
put
sobre
effort
su
into
muerte.
this.
Pasen un buen día.
Recibido Noble 1. A todas las unidades terrestres. La fragata 318 se aproxima y la munición MAC ha sido autorizada.
Munición MAC.
¿La atmósfera?
Es para llamar su atención. Agárrense fuerte.
Unfortunately, the aliens have the bigger dick here.
No, esto no puede estar pasando.
No,
Fragata
eso no
Grafton.
puede estar pasando.
La Grafton está hecha polvo.
Up until this point, you have only heard samples from the Mexican dub. It's not perfect, obviously. But just to prove my point, here is the Emil death scene, but in both Spanish dubs. I would say the Mexican dub has better delivery of the lines, and the Spain dub has a better scream at the start.
¡Quién sigue! ¡Estoy listo! ¿Y tú? ¡Siguiente!
No.
¡Estoy listo! ¿Y tú?
¿Y tú? 8 out of 10. At last, our final game. Well, here's the difference between Detroit and these other games. Detroit is more of a movie, so obviously it needs to invest into things that would make a movie pretty good, and part of it is really good acting, or in this case, good voice acting. But what ultimately sold Detroit for me was, well, you'll get to see.
Disculpe, teniente. ¿Podría venir un segundo?
¿Hay algo bueno?
Tal vez. ¿Podría alquilar a esa Tracy?
No mames, Connor.
¡Ey! ¡No mames, güey!